Kentucky will get a statement win over Tennessee and will make their mark in the SEC. We're going to break it all down here on episode 117 of the Big Blue Breakdown.
The Big Blue Breakdown, from kickoff to tip-off.
Welcome in, everybody, to the Big Blue Breakdown, where we cover Kentucky football and basketball. I'm Jackson Thurman, and I appreciate you guys listening to episode 117 here. And if you guys enjoy the show, help us out on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts by liking, subbing, and check us out on social media at BigBlue_Beatdown on TikTok, X, and Instagram. So today's show, obviously, it is a Kentucky-Tennessee preview here. I'm also going to give you my keys to a win and prediction and MVP. Also, obviously, be breaking down Tennessee and getting to know them a little bit more. So before we jump into today's episode, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Dubby Energy. If you're looking for a clean energy with no sugar and no crash, Dubby is the way to go. It helps me stay locked in for these game days, late nights, and all these breakdowns. If you want to try it out, make sure to use my code BIGBLUE10 at checkout for 10% off. That's BIGBLUE10. Okay, let's go and jump into breaking down this Tennessee team. So Tennessee is currently 12-5, 2-2 in SEC play. Their major wins are Houston and Louisville in the non-con, and they went on a 3-game losing streak earlier this year to Kansas, Syracuse, obviously Syracuse not being that good, and Illinois. Lost their SEC games, so they're 2-2 in SEC play, just like the Cats. They've lost their SEC games to Arkansas and Florida. They beat Texas A&M in a double overtime in their last game at home, and they beat Texas and Texas A&M. Excuse me, they beat both of those teams at home. But most recently, they won in double OT against the Aggies. Currently, they're actually tied with Kentucky in the SEC standings at 6. That's just something interesting to know here. So more analytical stuff here. In KenPom, they're overall 19th. They have the 51st ranked offense and the 11th ranked defense and the 223rd adjusted tempo. This team wants to go slow here. As you see, the numbers really, really like this defense, and they think the offense is mediocre. That's just what the numbers are showing us. So what does this team do good, and what does this team struggle with? So this team is only giving up 68.1 points per game this year overall. But in SEC play, they're giving up 82.5, which isn't terrible for the Vols. Rick Barnes, this team will be consistent on that end of the floor. So I really don't have any worries there. That's something that they have always done well, and I think that they will continue to do well with, at least when Rick Barnes is the head coach. He's always going to have a good defensive group. Okay. This team plays with great physicality, and that's another thing that Rick Barnes brings to the table and brings these guys that are going to play super, super hard and play with a lot of physicality, especially that front court, which we're going to get to in our impact players in this one. They play with great physicality inside, have been good defensively. And here is the biggest one. They're the best offensive rebounding team in the country, getting around 15.3 offensive rebounds a game. And they're the 4th overall best rebounding team in the country. So they're the best team at offensive rebounds, but overall they're the 4th best rebounding team in the nation. This team prides themselves on getting in on the glass defensively and offensively. And this is where they create a lot, and I mean a ton of second chance opportunities on missed shots. And this is where some of their offense, I'm not going to say most, I'm going to say some of their offense is coming from. According to National Division I team stats, Tennessee's 2-point field goal shooting percentage is around 55.3%, and that currently places them around 81st nationally among all Division I teams in 2-point percentage. I'm going to get into the bat here, and one of those things is 3-point shooting for this team. So this team prides themselves on getting around the rim, getting around the rim and making shots around the rim and cleaning it up off the glass and getting easier looks. That's what they pride themselves on offensively, and that's what they've mostly done in the Rick Barnes era. So The last thing that this team does very, very well, they're averaging around 8.3 steals a game. This goes back to their defensive dominance almost with Rick Barnes, or under Rick Barnes, I should say. 8.3 steals a game. This team is turning teams over a lot. And another way that they get points because of their lack of shooting is transition. Similarly, Kentucky is built around the same. But I will say the main difference so far this year is in the last couple of games, Kentucky has been pretty hot beyond the arc. Just something to know here. So what does this Tennessee team not do well? Well, they are not a high volume team shooting threes. They shoot around 24.2 3-pointers per game, and this is around 160th nationally. They only make seven or eight threes a game, shooting around 34.6%. Compare this to what we think is a struggling Kentucky team. They're making around 9, so they're making around 1 to 2 more. And I'm not saying that's a strength of Kentucky's. I'm just kind of comparing. If you were to say what is something Kentucky has struggled with this year, you got to bring up the 3-point shooting, right? Then they are turning the ball over, so they will turn you over, but they all have been pretty bad at turning the ball over, at least in SEC play. They're turning the ball over about 13.3 times a game, and this is the highest turnover team in SEC play so far. So they are coughing the ball up a lot, which is going to be big for the Cats, because that will definitely be a recipe for success for the Cats, because the half-court offense, again, it will not. I don't know if it's going to be good. We don't know. And it was good in that second half against LSU and good in the second half against Mississippi State. But where does that all get started? It all gets started in transition and turning teams over. So this is a good sign for the Cats when the team that they're playing is the highest turnover team in the SEC so far. So let's talk about their impact players. Jacoby Gillespie has to be number one. He's averaging 18.2 points per game, 5.5 assists, and he's shooting around 35% from three, which isn't terrible. I believe he is a transfer from Maryland. He has been an amazing player for them. A lot of production here, and you're going to consistently get that night in, night out. Very, very tough guard to guard right there. Then Nate Ament, 15.4 points per game, 6.4 rebounds. Now, I have not been impressed with Nate Ament. I will put this as an impact player because he is their second leading scorer. I don't think Nate has been good. And the reason I say he has not been that great is because he's not been very efficient at all from the floor and from 3-point shooting. That's kind of my take on him. And he's not very physical. I think Kentucky actually has a good matchup against Nate. So, but I will put that right there just because of his production if you look at his points per game. And then you look at the core of the core and the strength of this Tennessee team, and it obviously has to be Jalen Carey, JP Australia, and Felix Okpara. This is a 3-headed beast inside that rotates in and out. I believe I cannot think of his name. I believe it's Cade. Maybe is out for the year, and that's a big hit for this Tennessee team in the backcourt. But they're very, very deep here. And this is where they get their physicality. This is where they get their second chance points on the offensive end of the floor and being just a really, really good rebounding team in general. And this is where usually they play out of, and they've almost had the same recipe in and out every year. And that has been, this is the foundation of these guys right here. And then we're going to have one superstar on the outside, and that's been Jacoby Gillespie. So right now, Torvik has Tennessee winning this game 76-67 with a 9-point win over the Cats for Tennessee. That gives us the Cats a 19% chance of winning this basketball game per Torvik. So my keys to a win and why I think Kentucky can get a win in this one. Okay, and I think that they will. And that's one of my prediction, but I think that they will. First of all, you can't be playing from behind. That is not a recipe for success in this game because of how good Tennessee is defensively. And there could be times where you get stagnant even more now more than ever against Tennessee, and even more infuriating because Tennessee is so good defensively. And that is why you're going to have to push the pace. And that kind of leads me into my second and third one are kind of intertwined here. And that's going to be forced turnovers. You have to be able to force turnovers against this team and get on transition and get some easy buckets, because the buckets are not going to come easy at all on half court sets. And so you have to give yourself some leeway to mess up in those half court sets with some transition buckets. So you're going to have to not play from behind, because this is not a team defensively that you will just go on at 18. Come back from 18 like we did against LSU. And you're going to have to push the pace consistently, because that is not what they want to be doing at all for Tennessee. And then you're going to have to force turnovers. You're simply going to have to force turnovers, get out in transition, and a team that has been very, very turnover prone this year, and especially in SEC play, leading the SEC turnovers, you got to turn them over. And then last thing here is I have this in all caps, get defensive rebounds. This team's success is going to fall on the shoulders of Jacoby Gillespie and Nate Amin in scoring. And how will this team offensive rebound and get open looks underneath the basket, or be able to kick out for a second chance opportunity? That's where they've been so good, and that's where I think their solid production in inside shooting around the rim has been good, is because they get those easy second chance opportunities with them possibly around the rim, or they kick out for a three. So you simply have to get defensive rebounds, and that really limits a lot of their scoring production. In turn, they don't score as much. Very, very simple. So before we move on today's episode of the Big Blue Breakdown, I want to shout out Bluegrass Elite, your go-to brand for Kentucky apparel. If you want high-quality gear that really represents Big Blue, whether it's for game day, campus, or everyday wear, Bluegrass Elite has you covered. Make sure you check them out and use my code BBB15 for 15% off at checkout. That's BBB15 for 15% off at checkout. So last thing here, before we hop off here, really appreciate you guys tuning in here. Make sure to like, subscribe. It really does mean a lot. And check us out on the socials. Prediction and MVP. So I have Kentucky upsetting Tennessee on the road. And a lot of trends to go with this. Kentucky in their last 3 games at Thompson-Boling Arena is 3-0. 3-0. And I want to note something. In basically all 3 of those games, it was a struggling team at that time. We can admit that Kentucky has some momentum, but they're not near where they should, or I think they can be. Similar situations in last year. I think we come off some bad losses. The year before that with Rob and Reed, nobody thought we had a chance to go down there and win. And the year before that was even, I think, maybe the craziest one where nobody expected it. We were dealing with a lot of injuries, and CJ Frederick came up and came out big, and that was the last. No, that was not the last season of Calipari. That was the Robin Reed one. But anyways, Kentucky has historically, in the last couple of years, been very, very good at Thompson-Boling Arena, unlike a lot of other SEC programs. Simply, unlike a lot of other SEC programs. So, I think Kentucky will follow this trend, and I think they will get a win at Tennessee in Thompson-Boling Arena, 76-74. MVP. So, I had to do a lot of thinking for this MVP. So I went with Otega Owe the last 2 times, and I guess you could say he could be both times, but I think you have to give that to Malachi just for that shot at the end, and he had really good production throughout the game. I'm going with Mohamed Diabate, and the reason this is, I'm not saying Yelovich is going to struggle, but this is a game for Mo. The physicality, the inside play, the rebounds, this is somebody that can really, really help you rebounding the basketball defensively. And that's a key to a win for us, is get those rebounds defensively, because that limits a lot of their scoring production. Then the physicality standpoint, where he can sit down, he can guard a guy like Nate Amin and really, really bother the unphysical Nate Amin, or go down inside and get physical with a physical dude. And we kind of have a really, really good clash right there and a really good matchup. I think this is Mo D's type of game. I really do. Same thing offensively. I think that this is a game where he can get to the charity strike a lot. So I'm going with Kentucky 76-74 with Mo D being the MVP. I think this is, again, his type of game. I really appreciate you guys tuning in to episode 117 here on the Big Blue Breakdown. We'll catch you guys tomorrow for a recap of Kentucky versus Tennessee. Hopefully a win for the Cats. And as always, go Cats.